Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be talking about the power of ITSM and ESM in an uncertain economy. So, welcome, I'm Phil Fox and I'm a Principal Customer Success Advocate here at Adaptavist, and I'm joined by my colleague Richard Crampton.
Good afternoon. So a little bit about Adaptavist first. Adaptavist is 18 years on the market, having been founded in 2005, and we are now known as the Adaptavist Group. The company is self-funded with a strategic focus on ITSM, Agile, and Cloud. With our sustained growth over the last few years, and now with over 900 employees, the Adaptavist Group is positioned to serve multinational organizations and provide a 24/7 service with a presence on all continents. As Phil mentioned, as we go through this presentation, please do feel free to raise any questions or queries you may have in the Zoom chat function, and we'll look to address them as we go along and catch up.
So, what are ITSM and ESM? Well, many people will be familiar with those phrases, but maybe they haven't actually thought them through in that respect. What they are is a collection of practices that focus on how an organization manages the delivery of services being anything, but really they're about meeting the needs of customers and aligning with the business goals. So different organizations will have different levels of maturity. Some of you may not have yet invested in a service management system, while others may be struggling to keep an old system working. And you will be seeing a poll pop up in a second to ask you where you are. Others of you will be working in ways that change the way in which you work. And for some organizations, the service management solution may only be supporting your IT team. But then there will be the organizations who have already fully embraced the opportunity and are already embedding service management into many, many parts of their organization. We'll just take a second to give everybody a chance to respond. We can see the answers coming in, and it looks like many of you are already using it to support IT teams, so ITSM in that respect. And there's a lot of you that have got none. Very few of you are doing legacy solutions, but we can see there are a mixture of people here today. So for many organizations, now is a good time to think about what you've learned from ITSM and apply that into the enterprise to support all your tools. And we'll be looking today at some of the things that will help you work in that respect. So thank you everybody for doing that. And we've just shared the results with you. So you can see 21% have got no ITSM or ESM, 7% have got a legacy solution, which is no longer fit for purpose, but by far the biggest group is a 71% who are using it to support their IT teams. So, in this section, we're going to look at a world of uncertainty, and there are many different causes for uncertainty, but let's start by acknowledging that they exist. And so we go back to 1976 with George Box being quoted as the source of a quote. The concept predates this time, but when we look at any model, we have to remember that models are wrong, but some of them are useful. So when we look at a world of uncertainty and when we're looking to predict, we're looking through the eyes of statisticians and modelers, and we should bear this in mind. And therefore we need to understand that all the models that we're going to quote and suggestions in the future have strengths and have weaknesses. So living in a world of uncertainty, there are many illustrious organizations that try to predict the future. We know that, and we know that that is not going to be accurate, but it can help us in that respect. So let's just cherry pick a couple of viewpoints and think about how these global level models impact every organization. Starting with the World Economic Outlook from the IMF. We can see here that 2023 is predicted across all areas to be a much smaller growth in GDP across the world. And this follows on with the exception of Middle East and Central Asia on a drop in 2022 as well. But if we look at the OECD numbers for unemployment, we can see that there was a sharp rise in unemployed that occurred across the globe following the start of COVID. Some areas more prominent than others. But also, if we now look at that, we're now at record lows. Across the globe, many countries are now seeing an aging population, And that demographic structure is changing with lower numbers of economically active people. But we should not forget, and we've already made a passing reference to COVID and its effect on unemployment rates, but that disruption that happened across the globe due to that pandemic, and some of the impacts are still being felt to this day. With the ongoing war in Ukraine, we have yet another source of uncertainty in the world. When will the war end, and in what way will it end? We cannot predict the future, but we can hope for a swift return to peace in Ukraine with their boundaries fully restored. So I started with a quote from George Box, and I'll take us even further back now with a quote from Heraclitus. Whilst we can argue as to whether these are his exact words or meanings, we cannot at least accept that for now, we live in a world of constant change. But simplifying that even further, we can summarize these challenges for everyone as how do we achieve more with less? So, taking all of those things into account and all the other things that happen to give us uncertainty in an organization, how would you describe the outlook for your organization? And again, we're going to do a quick poll. Are you in an organization that is static? You have no expected changes. Is your marketplace shrinking and you're going to be doing less? Is your marketplace growing? Or are you in a disrupted marketplace and you don't know the outcome at the moment? So what we can see is most of you, by far, 82% of you are in a growing marketplace. But that doesn't mean that what we're going to be talking about doesn't apply to those in disrupted and shrinking marketplaces. You just need to put a different focus on what we're doing. So over to you, Rich.
Thank you very much, Phil. So earlier, Phil mentioned that all models are wrong, but some are useful. For the purpose of showing scale of cost savings a service management solution can bring, we're going to refer to a report published by Forrester in December 2022. This report talks specifically about the total economic impact of Jira Service Management, but the challenges experienced, benefits, and solutions go beyond the Atlassian platform. Fundamentally, with a rise in distributed and remote IT, operations, and service teams, organizations must find a service management tool that lets them simultaneously move fast, enable flexible working styles, and maintain visibility and connection between teams. The report looks at an enterprise service management platform that delivers accelerated time to value and enhanced visibility and connectivity between teams for organizations to deliver efficient and effective services for employees and customers. In particular, we'll be drawing on the case study used in the report, where 6 different organizations were studied in detail and the aggregated experiences are contained in the report. To provide a basis for comparison of costs, a fictional global hospitality service company with 10,000 employees earning more than $2 billion USD revenue was considered based on the direct experience of the interviewed customers. So this pie chart shows the 4 key benefit areas, but also that other benefits make up half the predicted. The figures used assume a 3-year period for benefit accrual, but with a 20% downgrade to account for new risks for the new system. Now let's take some time to consider these areas in further detail. So let's start with the customers, the end users of the system. If the end users are not happy with the solution, it really doesn't matter how good it is or all the capabilities it can bring. End users care about a reduction in friction, quick resolution times, and the ability to seek help with whatever they require. With public customers, one of the first signs of frustration is often noise on social media channels. And this may not be immediately obvious to your organization if you're not monitoring these channels. Another major friction could be the support outs. If you're providing support that's restricted to time zones that do not match the customer base, this can lead to a suboptimal customer experience with a 24-hour round-trip query response. So we can look at the challenges that end users bring to a service management solution. At a global level, there's an ever-increasing expectation that every organization will have service management firmly embedded within it. This in turn leads to the expectation of timely service, in line with end user experience of other online services, such as local food delivery companies, a global online retailer, or subscription-based streaming services. Another global consideration is the move to shift left, where end users are able to self-service their requests without necessarily needing to engage with a service desk agent. And the other lens we need to consider is, of course, the organization. And for this, we need to be aware that the end users want to get on with their job, and interacting with any form of ticket system, while essential to allow tracking of requests and their fulfillment, does not necessarily make for a happy and engaged end user. This is particularly true if the processes behind the ticketing system are inflexible or ineffective. Forrester recognized for end users, there are a number of key features that made significant differences to the organization and delivered tangible benefits. By having a clean and simple portal for the end users, this reduces friction on raising tickets and helps speed up that part of the process. Once the ticket is in the system, letting the end user see the current status increases the visibility of progress to the end user and also reduces the number of requests for updates. The latter aspect allows the service desk staff to focus on the tickets rather than answering the chasers. Finally, the biggest benefit is where the ticket can be deflected and addressed automatically, be this through the use of a knowledge base or automations. The aim is to reduce the human interactions on all tickets. Back to you, Phill.
Okay, so we talked about the end users. Now let's have a look at it from the perspective of the service desk staff. A common sign that your service desk solution is not fit for purpose is if the teams are siloed away and have to interact with many other solutions in order to provide resolution to tickets raised. This can often manifest itself as frustration or even anger on the part of those users. And it's often that the system can be seen to be getting in the way rather than helping to resolve. This, in turn, this use of multiple systems can lead to problems with slow triaging of tickets and a low productivity of the actual service desk staff. In any organisation that has not adopted a continual service improvement mindset, these same staff can find themselves repeatedly solving the same problems. This again reduces their productivity as they are focused not on providing quality of service, but on quantity of service. Bear in mind that when you're using metrics, quantity does not necessarily match with quality. You can deal with a lot of things, but not necessarily do a good job. All of the above also mean that rather than dealing with happy customers, the service desk will often find that they're dealing with upset users. And this emotional toil can lead to service desk staff feeling undervalued and can lead them looking for other roles, all of which increases the cost of retention, training, and incorporating new members of staff in that role. So one of the biggest changes for service desk solutions that is currently happening is, of course, the introduction of artificial intelligence. Whilst this can be chatbots to guide users through solutions, complex solutions described from interpreting customer input, or just changing the tone of a message that's given back to be more empathetic. All of these things are happening, and the modern organisation will want to make full use of all of these. At the same time, within the organisation, we need to make sure that the service desk is fully supportive of the changes going on inside the organisation. I'm sure many of us have experienced a service desk that has got out of step with the organisation and its way of working, and is unable to service users cleanly and easily. With low productivity and dealing with angry users, it's not surprising that staff retention and motivation are real big challenges that need to be addressed head on. Ensuring everyone has a queue in front of them with the support tickets in a format that enables them to focus on their priorities is essential, as that reduces the time to find the next priority item. That full visibility also goes out to enabling agents to see their team's work, and then they can focus on the work of the team rather than just on their own individual items. By fully integrating with other systems, information and processes, you can bring that to the service desk agent rather than them having to go to look for it. And that reduces the need to context switch. We should always recall that any context switch from one system to another has with it a break in productivity, and it can take as long as 20 minutes to an hour for people to retain that focus back on what they're doing. AI, of course, as we've said, is going to have a huge impact on the role of the service desk agent. And as it matures and is able to replace both mundane and complex problems with better, more efficient solutions. But does that make the agent redundant? No, that actually gives the agent the ability to focus on the tickets that require the human interaction, the human touch. Combining standardized responses for common problems, along with accurate, up-to-date knowledge base articles, will all help make the shift left experience more of a reality. And if we free up our agents to actually write better knowledge base articles, that improves the state for everyone. So when we think about a modern service management solution, we also need to consider the operations staff. These are the people who will keep your systems running smoothly and need to be able to react to any challenges or changes. As solutions grow, and here we're not just talking IT solutions, we're talking solutions across the business, they have a tendency to become more complex and have a greater number of dependencies. Knowing and understanding this in real time and seeing if any part of the solution is degraded or even non-operational enables the quick resumption of full service. Knowing that you have a problem is part of the problem that you need to fix. Whether your monitoring tools, your change management database, or your assets are easily accessible and giving you the information you need at a major or indeed any incident, the cost of implementing that will pay back many, many times with the speed in which a service can be restored. But we should remember that operations staff are not just about degradation in service levels. It's also important to proactively manage risk and understand where future incidents may occur and be able to develop plans for dealing with such potential scenarios. As operation users, we need to make sure that not only are they equipped with the right diagnostic and alerting tools, but they're able to quickly ascertain the recent changes that may potentially have led to that incident. Having that complete list of assets available allows for the operations staff to look for patterns of issues and, more importantly, to be proactive in managing the whole estate of your solution and equipment. But remember, operations staff are not just about handling incidents. They're going to be involved in the management of the risk, but they're also going to be reducing that likelihood, managing the releases of changes, practicing disaster recovery, running simple maintenance and replacement programs. And all of those tasks need to be fully supported within your service management solution.
Thanks for that, Phil. So next, let's talk about signs you're failing the decision makers. Different audience. Your decision makers need to have the right information for their needs, and this usually boils down to be able to see whether SLAs are being met or ideally exceeded. Every decision maker is being tasked with making the best use of their budget, which can become bloated over the years as the price for the solution gradually increases. Often this is caused by the addition of core products or underutilized features that you still have to pay for even if they're not being fully utilized. Another key sign to look for is when decision makers or end users start to make use of alternatives outside the current solution. This has a double impact as it increases both the complexity of the solutions being supported, but also reduces the visibility of the problems being addressed. If a solution does not fully meet the needs of decision makers, they will look for alternatives and there will be a low adoption rate, which in itself sends messages to all staff that the tool is not suitable for the needs of the business. As we work in a world that is increasingly one of specialisms and expertise, it's essential to implement a tool that encourages and fosters not just technical collaboration, but equally, if not more importantly, is accessible and inclusive for all users and enables these users to be able to get to the information that enables them to do their job. All of this within the regulatory and legal frameworks that exist for many industries. So at an organizational level, we need to make sure the decision makers get the right information at the right time to enable them to make informed decisions based on accurate data. By using a solution that's fully integrated with all the other tools of an organization, we can bring to the decision maker the information they need to do their job in a way that is easily accessible. By developing processes that can be supported through automation and AI, we can also reduce the number of tickets that are escalated for a decision maker to make a ruling on. Clear boundaries allow all staff to work on the aspects that are important to them without recourse to multiple conversations, either with the colleagues or with decision makers. Providing a solution that encourages collaboration within a framework of tracking ticket progress enables everyone to focus on the key aspects of their role, rather than working on activity to deliver the required values. Many of us, I'm sure, have seen solutions where decision makers have to pull information from a number of sources and collate this information prior to sharing it with colleagues. As we know, as soon as an extract is pulled from the systems, the chances are that the information is immediately out of date. So therefore, the need is solutions that provide the right information to decision makers in almost real time, enabling them to make quick and appropriate decisions at any point in time. We could continue to look at the other aspects of how a service management solution can be failing, but we've wrapped up all these other items under a single heading. Please be sure to read the full report to get an understanding of how the different aspects of a service management solution impacts your business, both where there is an absence, but also where the tooling is not supporting your organization's aims and objectives. Back to you, Phill.
So let's have a look at those other benefits and what do they actually come out at? So there are many things that a well-implemented service desk solution can bring to an organization. The first may be as simple as reviewing the costs of existing solutions and finding cheaper, or shall we say more cost-effective solutions. This may be through the use of tools already available in the organization, removing legacy solutions that have become overly complex or cumbersome, or just plain costly, or just doing more with your same tools. Any system unavailability will potentially lead to revenue loss. This can be very obvious in case of a customer-facing failure, but also applies where the system that fails leads to a drop in productivity of a team or a group of teams in an organization. Let's just consider for a moment the non-availability of a key solution to an organization can very quickly lead to 5, 6, or even 7-figure numbers for impact on revenue or impact on productivity. If you have a team of 10 highly qualified staff members who are unable to work on their specific tasks due to the unavailability of their solution, how much would this cost you per hour, per day, per week? Take that notional figure and you will actually see that that will have considerable costs without us even thinking about any deadline penalties that get hit. And that can be measured in thousands of dollars, pounds, euros, whatever you wish per hour. But benefits are not just financial. They can just be about working better, whether this is teams collaborating, employees feeling engaged and happiness increasing in a team, and ideally customer satisfaction improving. The aim of a good customer service, a modern service management tool, is to be more productive using the tools in ways that support rather than hinder the delivery of that service. By providing consistent reporting, we can also improve the understanding of the organization and how it is performing across all aspects of the business, aligning that with your business needs. So many of these additional benefits can all be aligned with one or more of these headings. And we should remember that it is important that we can scale a solution as organizations grow or shrink. This can be the result of some global event where the business needs to react in short notice changes in demand. Rich, I believe you have a case study that you want to talk through for this.
Yeah, thanks, Phill. So let's take an example of a grocery delivery company providing home delivered groceries within 15 minutes of order, 24 hours a day, providing green transportation. Initially, this company found that their business model enabled hyper growth during the COVID lockdown, with customers wary of venturing out in public and valuing the ability to socially distance themselves. Later on, with the loosening of restrictions and the decrease in the number of infections, combined with the situation in Ukraine and resulting inflation, they found their growth quickly plateaued and started to decline as people felt the pinch and had less money. It's therefore important to understand that with the current level of global uncertainty, scaling can apply both ways. And a modern service management solution should enable an organization to deal with these different challenges of scaling up and scaling down, and to enable the business to be able to react very quickly to both opportunities and threats. Back to you, Phill.
So that was scaling, being able to grow and shrink. But we should also think about flexibility. And this is the ability of the tool to support more teams, new processes, or just straightforward new ways of working. But business agility is something which is coming to the forefront as well with many modern organizations. And that's bringing agile approaches, not just to your IT part, but to the whole business. And that requires the improved visibility and collaboration that the tooling can encourage. So how do you take your journey for a better service management? How do you take your organization to a better place? Well, here are 4 ways very quickly. You want to deliver value quickly, effectively, and efficiently. Start by understanding where you are today. Think about what have we got, where are our strengths, where are our weaknesses? Don't throw the strengths away. What can you change immediately? What tactical changes can you make that will immediately improve your situation? Have you got processes that are operationally not ideal? How can you change those processes? What do you improve? How do you make a change to a process that will give you a much better solution? And then finally, think about it in the strategic lens and think about how you embed your service management across your whole organization and how it will help you in that respect.
So throughout the presentation, we've spoken about the solution. And it's very important to realize that the solution is the sum of the people involved, the processes they follow, the partners they work with, and the tools that support them. Many of us will have seen a new tool introduced in an organization with an expectation it will somehow be the panacea of all the problems. It will solve broken processes, address the culture of work, and then we see it fail considerably. In some circumstances, this can even make a bad situation much, much worse. Any transformation from where you are now needs to look across all the dimensions of your organization and not look at tools alone. There are, of course, many other dimensions to your service management that will have a lesser or a greater impact on your organization that you'll need to consider. Suppliers, technology, of course, the area you will operate will all have a part to play in what makes a service management solution successful for your organization. So having qualified the importance of people, process, and partners, let's flip back onto the actual tools. The Adaptavist Group, as an Atlassian Platinum partner, to present to you the range of tools that Atlassian bring to bear to provide a modern service management platform. And these are an enabler for the business.
Yeah, and it's worth stressing that Jira Service Management on its own is unlikely to be the full solution to your service management. Many people think of it in isolation, but actually it is just part of your tool set. And remember the tools that are not just your Atlassian tools that will need to be integrated in there.
So today we've talked a lot about what a modern service management solution may look like and given you a simple framework which you consider how to improve your services. Here at Adaptavist, we are available to help you with the culture, processes, and of course the tools to make the solution successful. Thank you all so much for your time.
So, anybody got any questions for us? Anybody got any pressing issues that they would like us to talk about? So Jake has asked, is ESM more desirable than ITSM in today's world? Do you want to take the first answer to this, Rich, and then I'll come
Yeah. So the first thing to say is the term ESM, while being recognized, is an interesting one because some people seem to note, oh, it's only for enterprises. Whereas actually the vision here is kind of service management for all teams. Is it more desirable? Yes, for one fact of if you can provide a single place where all your customers go to seek assistance, whether that's with an IT, with questions for HR, facilities, finance, etc., that makes a better holistic customer experience. What we've also seen is that IT processes don't live in isolation either, right? We talk to many customers and there's a large overhead on onboarding activities, right? So, you know, they need to sync with HR, someone's starting, they're in this role, we need to get them this equipment, we need to set up these accounts. Well, the trigger for that is actually happening within HR. So by actually mapping out a value stream and thinking about not just of individual teams as silos, but a value stream of that customer's journey, you can start to see the interlinkages there. So from someone being onboarded from HR to that creating tickets for accounts and sourcing hardware from IT, even to that going to facilities for printing out key cards. They're all overlapping value streams. So sometimes it's good to have that holistic lens on and think about the customer experience as you're moving from ITSM into the ESM space. Anything to add to that, Phill?
You've covered a lot there. I think the only bit that I would also add in there is if you have a diverse set of service management tools, you're often paying for the same functionality multiple times. And so there is a financial burden that comes in as well, where you can actually have efficiencies of scale by using one solution that services all parts or many parts. May not be suitable for every part of your business, but that greater visibility that Rich just described is also important. What way do we think AI will change customer IT support? Okay, I'll take the first stab at this and then Rich can jump in with others. Sure. I think the first thing is we know that service management is often about the same processes being repeated time and time again. So there are patterns to what you do and how you behave. Now, in the past, we've talked very much about a shift left with having documentation that helps people in that respect. That documentation is great as far as it goes. But what happens if you have a slightly different scenario or you describe it in a slightly different way? So I think what you have to remember is that AI is going to learn the outcomes and it can have an interaction with the customer, with the person asking for support. But not only can it be about learning and giving better answers, it will build upon the information that it is supplied with. And this is where I mentioned it earlier, putting your agents into writing better knowledge base, better articles, and using that focus of that intelligence level, that human intelligence to feed the AI with appropriate responses so that it can help will definitely make a big difference. But it can also be very simple things. Many of you will have had comments that have come back from the service agent at some organization where they have not been empathetic with your scenario. They've not responded in a way that has meant you felt that you were being looked after and supported. So it could be that AI will actually change the way in which we talk to people. One of our colleagues even mentioned the other day that he's found that in his own conversation, he's starting, because he's doing a lot of work practicing and testing out AI, he's actually found himself responding in ways in emails that are much more aligned with the way in which the AI was talking, because he's just had that experience. So lots of things going on in that respect. Rich, do you want to add anything else to that one?
I think it covers most things. I think what's quite interesting is we look at Atlassian's vision for this with conversational ticketing and conversational AI. Again, one of the key themes is shifting left, right? Enabling the customer to self-service. There's been a desire to do integration with both Teams and Slack, so people have to do less contact switching. They're already there in the application. They can start a conversation and ticket gets raised on that. Traditionally, without AI, that involves a higher overhead on the support team to facilitate that, have that conversation, and then raise a ticket on the back of that. With AI, it reduces that overhead. And as Phill said, with good knowledge base integration into this, that enables more of the shift left philosophy, reducing the overhead on the support team, so the support team can then support the challenging, the exceptions, that something's gone really strange wrong here, we haven't seen before. This really requires a human agent to do the investigation, and all this stuff that's a bit easier to manage, self-service. AI can remove all of that overhead to allow the teams to focus on where they can have the most value.
What would be your advice on starting ESM in the business and engaging with internal teams to come on board to end up with a unified process?
So it's a very good question. I think, I'll refer back to Phil's point earlier, which is start where you are. Understand how those teams are currently servicing their end users, what's working about that and what's not. Quite often we see that's a case of, well, we've got a mailbox and we've got a team that sort of jump on requests that come through to that shared mailbox and we deal with them. What feedback are you having from customers? Is that working for them? Is that not working for them? What sort of things are you interested in measuring, right? So what do you think a acceptable response time and resolution time is for that? Again, as I mentioned in the previous comment, understanding any overlaps in value streams. So HR with onboarding activities in IT can be one, where you've already got IT in that, it can extend that out and add further value. And the other thing is sort of understanding holistically what the customer experience is across the board, not just with a particular team or IT. Where do customers have to go to? And if it just so happens that as a customer, I've got to go to one solution for HR, one solution for IT, one for finance, that can really be a poor customer experience. So it's kind of understand where they are now, what problems they face, and paint it under the, the holistic vision of what really good customer experience can be for the company. Anything to add to that, Phil?
Yeah, I think I'm going to take the other part, which is the culture angle. And the culture is people will see success and will want to share in the success. So rather than trying to solve everything at once, focus on one part of the business and do it well. And the success of that team will then bring other teams to you in that respect. Don't overstretch yourself and try to solve everything at once, because the likelihood then is that what you'll do is you won't solve for everybody, you won't solve for anybody, because you will be too thinly spread. So I would say focus on delivering success and build out from that success base.
One further question, I'm just going to read this out. It's a two-part question. We'd love to see the use of insight. So see the customer details with the list of already solved issues. And also, what are the possibilities for multi-language support with knowledge-based articles per language? Good one. Do you want to take the first stab at that, Phil, and I'll follow up?
Sure. Yeah. So Insight obviously is now called Assets, but that's not, makes no difference. It's still the same functionality under the covers. So being able to pull up that customer details and see what you've already solved for that customer. But I would actually take it slightly further than just the customer. I would take it in two dimensions. One, which is see that customer and see the organization that customer is associated with and what problems have been solved for that organization. An organization in this sense could just be the department within the business, if you've got internal customers. So where does that customer sit? What is that customer doing? What is that customer trying to do? And what are people like him that work in the same way to having in terms of the solved problems? It could be, for instance, that you have a department where everybody is struggling to log in. That is fine. If everybody's struggling to log in, that department, you want to address that collectively. But also look at the problem that they've got and see, is this a problem that's shared with multiple customers in multiple parts of the business or multiple parts of the system? And so you need to look at it both in the dimension of looking at it from the perspective of the customer and what are the things within the context of the customer, but also look at it from the problem of what is the issue and what are similar issues to that and how have they been solved. So putting those two dimensions together, indeed, Assets will help you see a lot of that and bring that information and clarity in there. For the multi-language support, yep, that's an interesting challenge. One that I will be honest is not truly cracked at this point in time, but there is work that is undergoing in that respect. Anything else from you?
I think you covered that really well. On a personal level, I find Assets really exciting. Fundamentally, it's a relational database, so the possibilities are endless, but it doesn't always mean that you should do everything. The one area that I've seen a lot of value on that is really sort of on the maturity level, moving from reactive to proactive incident management. So for example, understanding the trends of an organization. So you get to see all the relationships with any CIs and issues raised on the back of that, but you could roll that up to trends. So an example might be if you have IT asset management and you've got all the laptops out within your business, you can start to see month by month, this particular model, 2 months ago, we had 10 issues. Last month, we had 10. You can start to see growing problems and get in front of them with the data that's available within that. So it can really help you move up the maturity in terms of how you operate. And that's an exciting place to be.
And just one other bit on the use of Insight. Don't forget that Insight isn't just about issues and incidents. Any of you who have used the Atlassian Cloud version of Jira Service Management will already have within it the ability to create risk management and use a practice standard that draws on Insight to build the model of how you actually respond. So don't just think about Insight in terms of how does it link customers to organizations, to departments, to things, or how hardware links to things, or problems linked to issues and incidents, but also think about how it can help you structure and frame the way in which you as a business operate, and more importantly, how you can reduce the amount of information that you request, because you already know that information, and how you can bring that to the front by knowing and understanding what somebody is asking for and knowing what they've got. So think about insight as exactly what it was. When it was called insight, it was actually more meaningful than assets. Insight is a much more meaningful term because it's the insight into everything that you know about a particular scenario and the relationships between the things. Assets just says you have a list of things, but the reality is that you have insight, which is things and relationships between things. And as soon as a customer raises a ticket in whatever respect, you already start to know what that is about, what relationships, and where does that impact. So think in that more broader sense. If anybody has got any more burning questions, otherwise, thank you very much for attending. We appreciate you being here, and we hope that you've gone away from today fired up to think about how you can change your solution, how you can actually improve your service management within your organization for the better. What are the first steps? What's going to be that tactical change that you make when you come out of this webinar? And we'd love to hear what you change and how you succeed. And what do you get away from this? So for myself and Rich and Hayden, who's been working in the background, we thank you for attending, and we look forward to seeing you on a future webinar.